Hunchback of Notre Dame is arguably Disney's darkest film. While it may not strike primal fear into me like certain scenes in Pinocchio or Dumbo, it grapples with themes like religion, racism, and corruption. Fittingly, it arguably has the darkest score. Instead of slowly building up to that heaviness, the opening number lets us know right away what we're in for. Not only am I excited to talk about this song, I'm also excited to partner up with Wild. If you know me, you know I'm deeply passionate about the environment. Have you ever considered how many single-use plastics are in your bathroom? The average person consumes 19,000 plastic cosmetic bottles over their lifetime, and less than half of those are recycled. If you're looking to cut down on single-use plastics, Wild is the perfect solution. Wild works on a refill system, meaning you keep the container. They've created the world's first body wash and deodorant that come in completely plastic-free refills. Unlike other plant-based bottles on the market, Wild's bamboo and plant starch refills do not rely on a plastic liner. You can even compost them. They'll break down faster than a banana peel. Refills for both the body wash and deodorant are put in a case that's made of a long-lasting, durable aluminum that won't rust or tarnish when exposed to water. It's so easy to assemble and smells amazing. Even better, there are no aluminum salts, parabens, or sulfates. There are limited edition deodorant scents for the new year: sage and eucalyptus, linen and lilac, and purple rain. My personal favorite is purple rain, which I've been using every day. This was originally supposed to be a shot of the products in the grass, but oh, that's not happening. Anyway, you can check out Wild's brand new body wash by clicking on the link below. You help Wild to plant more trees with their partner on a mission, stop single-use plastic from ending up in landfills, and you can save 20% on your order with my code ASTER20. If your New Year's resolution is to cut down on single-use plastic, it doesn't get any better than this. Thank you so much to Wild for partnering with me on this video. Before we begin, I'd like to give a huge shout out to this user called WillowScribe on MuseScore for creating this very accurate piano rendition. It was a huge help. The song begins with soft Latin chanting. This lets us know immediately that the movie will have a Catholic overtone to it, if you didn't already know about its source material. The translation to the lyrics actually pulls from the cut song Someday. It translates to someday, someday, Godspeed, let it come someday. It's a very peaceful harmony, which works as a fantastic contrast when the bells and heavier instrumentation come in. The stars of this part are the choir, bells, and horns, but can we give some love to that violin here? It provides a high note underneath all the deeper instruments, and the way the note shakes to communicate a sense of unease is perfect. If you're wearing headphones, it'll come in your left ear. In your right ear, you'll hear an organ layered over it, which adds to the cathedral feeling, while also providing more of a higher register to balance out the lower instruments. They fade out and are replaced by what you might consider to be a stereotypical French accordion. It's playful, which helps set the stage for the introduction of Clopin's voice, as well as the 3/4 time signature the song is mostly played in. This song expertly plays off its time signature. As we go through the lyrics, you'll notice how well they carry the rhythm.
Morning in Paris, the city awakes to the bells of Notre Dame.
The first thing the song establishes is that everything in Paris, especially the daily life, happens under the watchful eyes of Notre Dame, which is a central theme of the movie. After all, in the movie, it represents judgment.
Fishermen fishes, the bakerman bakes to the bells of Notre Dame.
Paul Candel gives an incredibly expressive performance. In this section, you could hear it best when he's describing the different types of bells. While he keeps the same volume while describing the big bells, he softens when he talks about the small bells.
A little bell soft as a psalm.
This is further helped by the use of alliteration in the lyrics. S is a very soft sound, so when he says soft as a psalm, it sounds soft. This is the type of detail only the most skilled lyricist would think of. The number of unique rhymes Schwartz comes up with for Notre Dame is also commendable. None of them sound forced or awkward. And the internal rhyme in this song? Perfection.
And some say the soul of the city is the toll of the bell.
As the song transitions to a spoken part, I want to point out something about the visuals. Notice how colorful Clopin's wagon is compared to the background. Not only does this help the wagon stand out visually, but it presents a contrast. The cathedral and its nearby buildings are all very drab. The church can be a very rigid and harsh place. Clopin and the Romani people in this movie, however, represent freedom and taboo. They go against what the church stands for in a lot of ways, so the use of contrast feels very appropriate here. When Clopin transitions into telling his story, there is a brief slowdown, or ritardando. This not only provides a buffer between the two songs, but it also builds tension. Even though it only lasts for a couple of seconds, it does its job. It feels menacing, and it needs to, because the story Clopin tells is a dark one.
Dark was the night when our tale was begun on the docks near Notre Dame.
I love how the music sounds hushed, but as the baby cries and the people panic, the instruments swell.
Shut it up, will you? We'll be spotted!
Hush, little one.
Lyrically, we're seeing more soft syllables again.
4 frightened gypsies slid silently under the docks near Notre Dame.
These soft syllables make the line sound like a whisper, which draws us into the scene of people sneaking through Paris at night. It's the little details that can really elevate a performance into something incredible. This is further shown by the way Clopin says the word trap.
A trap had been laid for the gypsies.
He shouts it instead of singing it, which emphasizes the shock. It really makes your heart jump. The internal rhyme Stephen Schwartz uses here absolutely nails that meter, too.
At a figure whose clutches were iron as much as the bell.
The singing enhances it by leaning into that emphasis. Not to mention that this is a really clever rhyme. Schwartz doesn't usually use slant rhymes, but this is a slant that really paid off because of the weight of the words. The word clutches is a very visual and visceral word. That's why the line feels so heavy. Word choice can really enhance the imagery and the scene you're trying to portray. Every word has a certain intonation and weight to it. If you're interested in songwriting, really feel out the words you're using and see how they add to a scene. In this case, the words iron and clutches are a perfect introduction to Frollo. He arrives on a horse, his status apparent at the first glance. The camera uses a low angle to represent how the frightened people see Frollo as a towering, imposing authority figure. Then the camera switches point of view to Frollo, who's looking down on the Romany people. This is where the choir comes back in. It's singing in Latin, Lord have mercy.
Notre Dame.
When the narrator speaks about Frollo, he's actually singing in 4/4 time and not 3/4.
Judge Claude Frollo longed to purge the world of vice and sin.
I think this represents order and severity, as 4/4 time is far more rigid than 3/4, especially compared to how playfully 3/4 time is used in this song. After a brief interlude of 3/4 time, the song transitions again to 4/4, far faster this time for the chase sequence. Here, the panic rises to a fever pitch. The time signature actually keeps switching between 4/4 and 3/4, so you never get comfortable with the rhythm. And do you want to know what that chanting is saying? Day of wrath, that day, shall consume the world in ashes, as prophesied by David and the Sibyl, what trembling is to be when the judges come. Heavy stuff. This could be foreshadowing. It might be talking about the climax of the movie, where judgment comes down on Frollo while surrounded by molten metal. This particular motif also plays when Frollo is scouring the city for Esmeralda. Back to the song, the scene is intense. I especially feel it in this profile shot where you can see Frollo gaining on the woman. I love the shot where she runs up to the cathedral because it shows the scale of the building and how small she is compared to it. It represents how, compared to the powerful church, she is nothing. She's especially nothing to Frollo, who ends her life without a second thought just to get what he thinks are stolen goods. When Frollo realizes the thing he's holding is a baby with deformations, he wants to drop it down a well. We all know this part. Right before that motif from the beginning comes back, there's another ritardando to build up the tension, and when that motif comes in, it's an overpowering choir. I especially love how the organ comes back in here. Its higher register provides balance. We get a shot of Clopin for a split second to remind us that this is a recounting of past events. It's a great trick that doesn't take us out of the scene. The playful underlying melody comes back in.
"Stop!" cried the Archdeacon.
The holy demon. I'm sending it back to hell, where it belongs.
I adore the Archdeacon's parts. The rhymes are superb.
See there the innocent blood you have spilled on the steps of Notre Dame. Now you would add this child's blood to your guilt on the steps of Notre.
Spilt in guilt is such a clever and excellent rhyme because it makes the two words feel connected. I'm not sure if this makes sense, but rhyming two words can make them feel intertwined. Blood has indeed been spilt, and that should lead to guilt, but the problem is that for Frollo, it doesn't. And then comes my favorite line in the song.
Self and your minions, You can claim that you haven't a qualm from nor hide what you've done from the eyes of Notre Dame.
There's so much venom in the word minions. It's so much more negative than a word like followers or clergy. And listen again to how the instrumentals punctuate every syllable of that delivery.
Never can run from nor hide what you've done from the eyes.
This connects back to the first lines of the song. Everything in Paris happens under the eyes of Notre Dame, from the innocuous to the villainous. A big theme of this movie is religious retribution and what it entails. It especially connects to the climax of the film, where Frollo's end is caused by a piece of Notre Dame itself crumbling. After this, we switch back to the alternating measures of 4/4 and 3/4. The narration is in 4/4 time, but the choir is in 3/4.
Life of power and control.
Much like the previous instances of this switch, this creates a feeling of unease by missing a beat. It makes the choir much more jarring by changing the rhythm, almost like the choir is a pang of emotion. Remember, the choir is singing Lord Have Mercy. As Clopin explains the origin of the name Quasimodo, there's yet another retardando to play up the reveal of the name.
A name that means half-formed. Quasimodo.
When we go back to the framing device, it mimics the instrumentation from the beginning, reverting to a more playful tone.
Now, here is a riddle to guess if you can sing the bells of...
As Clopin asks his final question, the theme of the entire movie, we get a luxurious build-up to a triumphant high note, punctuated by the choir, bells, and crescendoing horns.
Bells, 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 bells.
And huge shout out to Clopin Singer for hitting a D6 for the final note. Something that's really interesting about this final section of the song is that it's in D major as opposed to D minor. It's like a Picardy third, but for an entire section. Because this is the title card, it gives more of a hopeful feeling by transitioning to a major key. It's also the first part of the film to focus a shot on Quasimodo, who uses the major key form of this motif later in Heaven's Light and at the very end of the movie. I think a lot about that motif and what it represents. I actually went through the movie and picked out every time the motif played. We've covered the times it plays in a major key, but it usually plays in a minor key. Most famously, it plays during Hellfire, but it also plays during other times where wrath is the main emotion. The introduction of the Palace of Justice, when Frollo burns down the miller's house, when Frollo is about to burn Esmeralda at the stake. Fire is a major theme, as fire can represent wrath and desire. Frollo's villainy comes from a mixture of these traits, so using the motif to start the film sets the stage for the main conflict. The song is, in short, brilliant. Menken and Schwartz did exactly what they needed to. They used music to tell a story, but they went above and beyond. Menken's careful use of dynamic, complex instrumentation is complemented by Schwartz's tight lyricism, everything combining to capture the exact energy and tone the song needed. It's playful, as a storyteller should be, but also dark like the subject matter. Much like the movie as a whole, Bells of Notre Dame needed to walk a fine line between its serious tone while also being digestible by a large audience, and I feel it did that perfectly. Originally, this entire sequence was just spoken narration. Could you imagine that? It was changed because of how boring that would have been. I think we could all agree that this was the right choice. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you're interested in more music analysis, consider subscribing to my channel or joining my Patreon. If you join, you get early access to videos and the ability to vote on polls for my future videos, as well as other perks. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.